Hey, what's up, Mavs fans? Kevin Gray, Mavs pre and post game host on 97.1 The Freak on the Dallas Mavericks Radio Network. Inside the Mavs, mini-sode here. Appreciate you joining me here on Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube. Make sure you download and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get the podcast for free for Inside the Mavs on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast for free. Make sure you give the podcast a 5-star rating and write a review for it. While you're there, the Mavericks in the 2023 calendar year with a win on the road against the Golden State Warriors as they get the 132-122 win over Stephen Curry and the Warriors. The Mavericks now finish 8-8 in the month of December. A December that had a lot of adversity in it, with Kyrie Irving missing double-digit games, Josh Green missing double-digit games with his right elbow sprain, Luka Doncic missing a few games, whether it be for rest or obviously the birth of his baby girl. But the Mavericks find a way on the road to move to 19-14 on the season. They get their NBA leading 11th road win of the season, where they're now 11-7 on the road so far this season, while also being 8-7 at home to make up their 19-14 record. Luka Doncic was absolutely sensational once again. He had 39 points in the game to go along with 10 assists and 8 rebounds. Josh Green, the aforementioned Josh Green, came off the bench and scored 18 points. It was a huge help, especially in the second half, to be able to help the Mavericks stave off the Golden State Warriors. They got the Golden State Warriors 24 points from Chris Paul, who was in the starting lineup, but they held Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson in check, where they combined for 28 points, 25 of those coming from Stephen Curry, as Klay Thompson was a dreadful 1 for 11 from the field, 1 of 6 overall with just 3 points. It was a -7 on the night. Meanwhile, the Mavericks got really nice contributions from Dante Exum once again, who had 19 points in the game, going 8 of 12 from the field. You also got 12 points and 14 rebounds from Derek Lively, another double-double for the rookie out of Duke. A really complete team win for this team in a game that had a lot of runs in it. The Mavericks, after getting down 4-0, were able to get back into the game with a double-digit run that allowed them to take the lead, and they really never looked back from there. The Golden State Warriors tried to keep things close, especially in the fourth quarter. Chris Paul was able to knock down a few threes to ultimately get the Warriors within 5, but the Mavericks were able to hold on and move on from Golden State with the 10-point win. And there were several things that stood out in this game based on what you saw. Obviously, for Josh Green, a big night for him, coming off the bench, knocking down 3 3-pointers, attacking the rim in transition, attacking the rim off the dribble, and being able to get some nice 3-point plays, a 4-point play, being able to knock down a 3 while also getting fouled. I thought Josh Green was really good for them in this game, and you saw part of the reason why the Mavericks were wanting to give him the extension that he did. Now, he's been dealing with this elbow injury for the last several weeks. He even said post-game it was something that happened to him last year as well. But give Green a lot of credit for being able to come in and really provide a spark for this team off the bench. And as you look at what they were able to do, they outscored the Golden State Warrior bench 46-37 on the strength of those 18 points from Jaden Hardy. You also in this game got 16 points off the bench from Tim Hardaway Jr. In this game, you saw a starting lineup that had Luka Doncic and Jaden Hardy in your backcourt, along with Derrick Jones Jr., Dante Exum, and Derek Lively II. Grant Williams did not start even with the absence of Kyrie Irving, whom it looks like is going to be playing relatively soon. Jason Kidd saying before the game against the Warriors that Kyrie Irving is getting close, had a really good workout over the weekend as he looks to make his return maybe as soon as New Year's Day when they take on the Utah Jazz. Ultimately, it looks like he'll be back definitely for their longest homestand of the season, which begins on January the 3rd. So for the Mavericks, things are looking up for this team. But what I loved most was the amount of guys that really did the things that they were capable of doing, staying within themselves to be able to help Luka Doncic. Doncic is going 14 to 29 with the 39 points. He's a walking 30-point-a-night guy at this point, and you know exactly what you're going to get from him, even with the quad injury that's been bothering him since March, which he talked about after the game is something he'll just have to continue to work through, and it's better when he gets to work it out in the weight room. So something that we'll continue to monitor all season long. No harm, no foul there. Luka Doncic, one of the most beat-up players in the NBA with the amount of physicality that he deals with on a night-to-night basis. But this was about the Mavericks finishing the month of December strong after everything that they've been through in the month. They finished the month at 8-8. You say, Kevin, that's a 500 record for the month of December. But when you put it into context with all the things that they have dealt with, the injuries, the inconsistencies from Grant Williams at times, no Kyrie Irving, no Derek Lively II, no Josh Green. Maxi Kleber still has not played at all during the month of December. This team was able to find a way, even when Luka Doncic had to rest at times, to be able to give him some opportunities to remain the guy that carries this franchise on its back. And for that, you give them the credit they deserve for being able to weather the storm and the adversity that came with some really difficult travel and schedule when you look at the kinds of road home back-to-backs that they've had to play. They are currently on a 3-game road trip right now where, of course, they lost to Minnesota, but they were able to get the win against Golden State before ultimately taking on Utah on New Year's Day, where the last time the Mavericks saw them, they were handing them a 50-point beatdown at American Airlines Center. So all this to say is, for the Mavericks and what they've been able to accomplish now 19-14 through 33 games with everything that they've been through, now 6th in the Western Conference, it's a good spot for them moving forward going into 2024, where they'll have the longest home stretch of the season beginning on January the 3rd. Well, they'll have plenty of opportunities to stack up wins and, more importantly, be able to relax at home for at least a couple of weeks versus all the schedule and the hellacious travel that they've had to deal with in terms of a wonky schedule so far this season in their 23-24 campaign. But guys like Josh Green, other guys like Dante Exum, and as this team continues to get healthy, what you were able to experience over the last several weeks is a look into the window of the depth that this team has, and if they could potentially make a move at the trade deadline, as we saw with the New York Knicks making a move, getting OG Anunoby, who knows what this team could look like. But look at the first 33 games of what you got from guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., who's a leading 6th man of the year candidate, had another 16 points, has been knocking down three-pointers at a pretty good clip, a guy who's top 10 in the NBA in three-pointers made. The surprise of Dante Exum and what he's brought to you, not just defensively, but offensively, and the aggressiveness that he's showing, knocking down three-pointers, and the confidence to be able to play the kind of game that he's capable of, and providing this team with a calming presence on both ends of the floor with his ability to attack the rim off the dribble and now knocking down shots from the outside. Derrick Jones Jr., another pleasant surprise with his length and athleticism and the green light that he's had in knocking down three-pointers so far this season. Derek Lively II, the biggest surprise of them all, the rookie out of Duke, has provided you with rim presence, the ability to attack the rim off the pick and roll. You saw that in the game against the Golden State Warriors. Him and Luka Doncic working the pick and roll to perfection, with him being able to finish strong at the rim. And as he stays healthy and continues to learn to play without fouling and grows and matures, you've seen the difficult stretch that he's had to go through in the last couple of games, dealing with some really good centers, whether it be the Cavaliers with Jarrett Allen, also with Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns in Minnesota. What he is learning to do is learning to play with better strength, better IQ, but also continuing to grow on the offensive end to be a devastatingly efficient player at the rim and in the paint, which provides you a lot of confidence that as he continues to grow in his game, all those things will come that much more easier for him as the second half of the season goes on. And that's the wild part. We're just 7 games away, 8 or so games away from the true halfway point of the season, which gives us a window and a big enough sample size to know what this team is. A team that when they're knocking down threes like the 16 that they made against the Golden State Warriors, are a really hard team to beat. Luka Doncic spearheading this team from an offensive standpoint with his passing and creativity, making things easier for guys around him. And when this team is knocking down shots like most teams in this league, they're at their best. But more importantly, they have now started to find a little bit of an identity when it comes to the guys that they can rely on. And once Kyrie Irving comes back, now you have a chance to have a legitimate closer alongside Luka Doncic to where he can be able to shoulder the load at times so Luka Doncic doesn't have to. And there's a perfect example of that. The Cleveland Cavalier game is a game that you needed to have a Kyrie Irving. As Karis LeVert was making his run, scoring the 15 points in the fourth quarter that he did for Cleveland, the Mavericks were gassed and exhausted on the offensive end, and they couldn't buy a bucket from anybody, including Luka Doncic, who had a couple of crucial turnovers in that fourth quarter. Kyrie Irving would have been real useful in that time frame to provide the kind of scoring punch that he's able to as a sidekick alongside Luka Doncic. That's what you're looking most forward to if you're a Maverick fan going into 2024, is that Kyrie, with his ability to score and take over games, to be able to take some of that pressure off of Luka Doncic, will ultimately be beneficial as you go into the second half, knowing how much more things are going to get ratcheted up and difficult as you make yourself toward a playoff run. And for the Mavericks, the goal is very simple. Finish in the top 6 so you don't have to worry about being in the play-in. And I think, especially as this team is able to stack some wins at home, will find themselves being in the top 6 by the time we get to the end of this season. If nothing else has been proven, the Mavericks have depth right now that has been tested and now proven to be able to show up when they've needed it to. Now, if Grant Williams can find some consistency, the big free acquisition that the Mavericks had this past offseason, and find a way to ensure that not only is he in the right shape to be able to move forward, but also be a guy that can be consistently counted upon to knock down shots and be able to provide the kind of defense that he's capable of. Now we're looking at a team that's legitimately a top 6 team in the West and could possibly threaten to be a top 4 seed. That is the ultimate pie in the sky for this team, is can you finish as a top 4 team in the West? But this team is good enough and capable enough with 2 stars at the top with Luka and Kyrie to finish top 6. And again, defensively, can they find themselves getting stops when they matter most? This team is now 11-5 in clutch games this season, which gives you an indication that they've been able to handle pressure in the stretches, in the moments where they need to. They were able to do so again against the Golden State Warriors when things got tight in the fourth quarter, ultimately pushing the lead back up to 10 and winning by that margin. So look, the Mavericks are winning games in the clutch. They're winning games on the road. Luka Doncic is playing at an MVP-like level, and the supporting cast is being just that, supporting the superstar that needs to be supported every single night. And as this team continues to get healthy with Kyrie Irving's return, some versatility with Maxi Kleber once he comes back as a guy that is a stretch 5 who can knock down 3-pointers, but also provide you some defensive flexibility, you feel like this Mavericks team may be able to turn a corner once they turn the calendar over to January and be able to get back home for a couple of weeks to hopefully move forward and move up in the West, because you will have that kind of home cooking. And if that's the case, the Mavericks could be a dangerous team. While, yes, they've had their difficult stretches and games where they should not have given them away, a la the Cleveland Cavalier game, for example. They were shorthanded against the Minnesota Timberwolves, but they put up a really good fight with Tim Hardaway Jr. scoring 32 points in 32 minutes in that game, showing a lot of competitiveness against the best team in the West record-wise. This team could be a legitimate threat for a top 4 seed. And that's what you're hoping for if you're a Maverick fan. But I was impressed with this win. You were able to lock down Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry. You were able to, if you were the Dallas Mavericks, get help from the guys that you're counting on most as you continue to move forward in this season. And Luka Doncic was being Luka Doncic as far as his game is concerned. So if you can get stops down the stretch, you can find a way to continue to win in the clutch, you find some more consistency from Grant Williams, the Mavericks are well on their way to finishing in the top 6 of the West. And they are just now about to have some really nice home stretch here to be able to really make some hay in the Western Conference. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but you would rather them do it within the friendly confines of the American Airlines Center versus what they've had to do on the road so far. And even that has been successful for them as they've won 11 road games. So good job on the Dallas Mavericks finding a way to get a win on the road when they needed it to stop a little bit of the bleeding, as they had lost 5 of their last 7 games coming into that game against the Warriors. They walk out of Golden State with the win and looking to get another dub on New Year's Day when they take on the Utah Jazz. And if so, it's looking pretty nice going into January as you get ready for the early February trade deadline. And then the Mavericks may be able to really have some fun if they can find a way to get creative with some of the assets that they have to be able to make this team better. All in all, though, a successful December based on what had happened to them, the adversity that they overcame, and ultimately what they were able to do. Get wins when they mattered most. He did so again against the Golden State Warriors. Mavericks get the 132-122 win over Golden State. Now 19-14 on the season, 11-7 on the road, 1-1 on their current 3-game road trip that ends in Utah on New Year's Day. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports. You can also follow Inside the Mavs on Twitter at Inside the Mavs for our podcast. Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays are when our episodes drop with my partner Grant Afseth of Mavs Sports Illustrated. He's on the road covering the team as he was in Golden State and will be in Utah on New Year's Day. Make sure you give him a follow and subscribe to his YouTube channel at Grant Afseth, just like you can with my channel here at Kevin Gray Sports. Mavs get back on the floor on Monday night to take on the Utah Jazz, looking for their 20th win of the season and their 12th road win of the season at that, before they come home for a nice 2-week homestand that should see them stack some wins against the West. My name is Kevin Gray. Appreciate you joining me on this Inside the Mavs mini-sode. Again, follow me on Twitter at Kevin Gray Sports and download the podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. The official Mavericks podcast of 97.1 The Freak. I'll talk to you later. Peace.